Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Charlie Davies. The Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs roll on. We're down to 4. And before we get into the conference finals, Saturday, Sunday, what a wonderful time it is in the calendar. Of course, you got Portland hosting RSL. And then on the other side, Philly hosting NYCFC. I just need to check in on you, Charlie. I just need to see how you're doing. Condolences. I want to make sure that the last couple of days for you have gone, as well as they can go. I mean, have you left the dark room? Have you... how are you feeling, man? Like emotionally, have you been able to cope?
Yeah, I know misery likes company, and I feel for you, Levy. But you know what?
Just give me a hug, big guy. Just come over here and just embrace me.
I'm good. There's a lot of positives this year, and so at least you have something to kind of hang your hat on, and you have CCL.
We got a trophy.
You have CCL coming up.
CCL draws like in 2
That's
weeks.
right.
Come on.
Right back into it.
Hey, Sporting KC has the Leagues Cup. Now that the Revs are out, they were rooting for you guys, right? They didn't want to play in the Leagues Cup, which is, as we all know, based on my logic, my viewpoint, the wrong way to think about things. But, you're right.
Well, it kept them fresh for the playoffs.
I want to add this.
Yeah.
I have to add this as well. I was speaking to a nonprofit called Project 351. And it's 351 towns across Massachusetts. So they're 8th graders, youth in service, right? They go out and they do great things for the community, and they're the role models, leaders of the future. One of the kids said, "Can you please tell Andrew Wiebe I said hello?"
This sounds like a made-up story.
I'm not kidding. Big fan of Extra Time.
Let's go.
I don't get a hello. Only Wiebe gets a hello.
He just said, "Hey, make sure Andrew Wiebe knows."
Dude, are you kidding me? I'm basically masked, bro.
I'm just letting you know.
He knows you're faking it, though, Dave. He knows. Well, I wouldn't say anything about what I'm faking. You know what? To that 8th grader out there, I say hello to you.
Can I also say, for us to do a bit, we have to be so mean and harsh. And Charlie is such a good person that his bit involves not even part of it. I spoke to a nonprofit. Here's the nonprofit. You shouldn't make fun of Charlie or give him a hard time out the Revs because Charlie's a better person than us is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I only did it because I still am smarting from how hard Charlie burns me on a regular basis in the DMs and the group chat. I had to give it a try. Look, as I said, the playoffs are rolling on. We're down to 4. We know who is going to potentially host MLS Cup, who can win MLS Cup. Right now, here is the priority ranking for hosting MLS Cup on December 11th. If the Portland Timbers win and they play at Providence Park on Saturday, they will host MLS Cup. They have not done that before, of course. They lost in Atlanta. They won in Columbus. So the Portland Timbers have a chance to do this thing at Providence Park, and what an incredible night that would be. If they don't win and RSL somehow continue their incredible run, very possible. No Sebastian Blanco, no Dairon Asprilla. Albert Rusnak appears to be back and ready to play.
Oh, boy.
Then it would be either Chester or Yankee Stadium, we believe, based on everything we know, that would host MLS Cup. Again, the first time they would do so, the first time any of these two Eastern Conference teams, regardless who wins, will be going to MLS Cup. We're in a pretty good spot here entering the end of it. There's some historic stuff at stake. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to preview both games here on this show. Sam Stejskal will drop by with a bevy of rumors. No, just kidding. We love Sam. I love
We'll
Sam.
take in all of Sam's rumors, and then we'll reach out to Paul Tenorio and see if he can confirm.
How can we do this, and how can we say this about Sam when literally he sets our rundown on a weekly basis with his reporting? It's not fair, and we'll stop. I think, and maybe not. But Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, FS1, Fox Deportes, Timbers, Real Salt Lake, pregame Twitter Spaces, postgame MLS social channels. You can watch that. And then on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, ABC, ESPN Deportes, Union hosting New York City FC, a historic game for both involved. And look, this is just going to be fun, Dave. You were in Chester, you were at Subaru Park, you know how that crowd's going to react. We've all been to Portland for a game, right? Everybody here? Yeah?
I've played.
Yes, Charlie?
Play there?
Yeah, I've played there.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure. Yeah. Enjoyed the experience in the stands, suckers. It's a little different when you're on the field. But this is amazing, man. Like, look, there's a lot of fan bases out there disappointed. There's a lot of people saying, hey, these number one seeds are already out. Something's got to change. But regardless of how it went down, the opportunity, Dave, for these fan bases, for these clubs, is just, it's massive. And it's exciting.
Yeah, I think as a neutral, what you want is like the moment, the atmosphere. To me, I love like big events. These are both going to feel like massive events because I was at that Red Bull game and it was electric. And then you turn on the Nashville game and you saw the speech Ali Bedoya gave in the huddle, and you can go watch it on Philly Union. I think their Twitter.
Don't refer to this speech like it was some magical speech. Come on.
I'm just saying the first thing he says is he touches on the atmosphere, right? The players can feel it. That's all I'm saying.
Good.
And you could see it through the TV. Yeah. It was not Winston Churchill will fight him on the beaches for sure. And then Portland, I think it was Mike Donovan talking about this on Twitter, who's, did a great job covering the Timbers. And now he does stats a lot on NWSL. If you're interested in that, and follow him, saying like this could be the biggest game for MLS times in Providence Park history because, as you mentioned, with the cup finals, but also the semifinals, them being lower seeds, a lot of the second legs being on the road. Most of the great moments that have happened for them outside of like the double post haven't happened at home, and the buildup hasn't been there. Because in two legs, it's different. What do you need? What do you not need? Single elimination at the beginning of a tournament. But now it's like, this is a Western Conference Finals to host MLS Cup. Everything's laid out on the table before you walk in that building. And so I think what we're going to see on Saturday night, just from the atmosphere and the moment and all of that, is going to be something pretty special. So that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, look, the Union are trying to build on what they did last year. For all we talked about losing best 11 players and kind of the beginning of the season, it sort of felt like, are they going to fall a little bit short? But to get to a semifinal in the CCL, to get to a conference final, to potentially get to an MLS Cup, maybe even host the damn thing. I mean, I remember when Union fans were parading like they had the coffin. They're parading around. They've had some dark times, and to be in this position has to just feel like a dream. Before we jump into our previews and obviously talk about how these teams got here, I just want to throw it out there. Call-up had Justin Glad and David Ochoa. Ochoa said his villain tendencies go back to his idols growing up, one of which was Kobe Bryant, the other Cristiano Ronaldo. So smack talkers, that's where he's coming from at age 20.
And we're at a point where guys in the league growing up watching players who still currently play.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it dates us all just a little bit. But I'm looking forward to Timbers Army versus Ochoa. That should be a really fun matchup between two sides trying to get in the other's heads.
You think maybe he'll have something for one of the? Maybe he'll see a young fan in the stands and just maybe have a gift for them. Just
maybe they need a souvenir. I mean, that's the type of guy he is. Like
he's a giver.
He's like Charlie. He's just got a big heart. All right. Let's start with Saturday's game, right? Let's talk Portland Timbers, Real Salt Lake. I got a lot of tweets here from Timbers fans, and they're basically all saying that we have we don't seem to actually enjoy the Timbers as a club or a team, or fill in the blank here, that we never discuss them, that our narratives are old and tired. That we just say, hey, that with Blanco, they're incredible. Without Blanco, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's mad at us for talking RSL so much. Well, no Blanco, so we can't revert to that old tired cliche, can we?
Nope.
What do we think of what Gio Savarese will do against Real Salt Lake? And we'll get into Pablo Mastroeni's side here in a little bit, because he sort of flip-flopped his styles in the playoffs a little bit and in the regular season. For Gio, what's he thinking about right now, Charlie? Like, how does he deal with missing his best player who had come back and been in such good form? How does he deal with arguably the most consistent attacking player on the team this year in Dairon Asprilla? Like, what's he got at his disposal in this game?
Well, I've already said how I would have loved to play for him, and it's because of moments like this. You're losing two of your most influential players, Sebastian Blanco, who we know is a game changer, and Dairon Asprilla, who's had his career season this year. Well, this is when he's having those conversations with both Felipe Mora, Marvin Loria, and Diego Valeri, because those are the three players that are going to have to step up and play a big role in this matchup. I think when you're looking at Dairon Asprilla, you're probably going to see Marvin Loria come in for him. I would think that's kind of the play, someone who can play both sides of the ball. You're not necessarily looking for goals and assists, but you're looking for a player who can keep possession and win second balls. And I think he's one player who I think is still, we haven't seen the best of. He's still growing and developing, but I've seen things from him throughout his career in Major League Soccer that I'm like, man, he can develop and be a really influential player in Major League Soccer. And then I think with Sebastian Blanco out, this is the moment for Diego Valeri to step up. I don't know how much time he can give you at his optimal, with an optimal performance, but this is the moment where you can play him in this role and expect that he's going to give you something.
You don't think Santiago Moreno is the like for like? That's who came on for Blanco in the Rapids game. That is sort of the young guy that they went out this summer and spent money on and said, hey, you're a big part of the future of this club. I think if they went Lorea, they'd be going a little bit defensive, but then I guess you could go Moreno for Blanco and then Lorea for Asprilla, and then you sort of have a balance there. And you have Jimmy Chara on the other side. He's been a killer of RSL. Then I guess you're choosing Nijgoda or Mora up top. Like, could you go Nijgoda and Mora? I don't know. Like, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure Timbers fans will immediately do that, but I'm not sure they've had to deal with this year with both Asprilla out and Blanco out.
It's going to be interesting, but I do think they have enough to get the job done. I do think they have enough to win this game. Now, Real Salt Lake, we've seen how they've played, but they're getting Albert Rusnak back. You have to have a strong, sound formation, which I think they're going to do because they are very tough to break down. Diego Chara, he's going to have another big performance. But on the counter, they can hurt anyone. They're that good. So I do believe that this is where we're going to see the quality of coaching show through. And Portland playing at home in front of that magical crowd, I can tell you right now, that makes a difference. When you play there, you feel it. You can feel the fans are right on top of you. When they chant and when they're kind of doing their thing, that level of the Portland Timbers rises considerably because I've played them at home and I've played them on the road in their place, and there's a big difference on how they play and the level of I think their energy levels are at a peak when they're playing at home.
12-4, Dave. That's a cumulative score this year. It's 3 wins in 3 games for the Portland Timbers. 3-2 on August 7th, 6-1 on September 25th. That's sort of like the prototype, wow, don't open up RSL because you'll get absolutely run off the field game. And then 3-1 on the 3rd of November.
Which was the loss that I thought killed RSL season. I thought they were done after that because remember, that was midweek before decision day. They had lost that San Jose game where they were ahead and then they let them back. They went down, 3-4-0 and then they fought back. The first 2 games you mentioned is funny. The first one is the one that I'm looking at the most, even though it's pre-Pablo Mastroeni. It's in Portland. It was Blanco. He played like 45 minutes off the bench. It was kind of his first long spell. So it was sort of pre-Blanco being back, which is where they're back now for Portland. And Portland got out to a 2-0 lead, outplayed RSL early 1-3-2 in the end. RSL's expected goals was 0.6 higher, 2.6-2. Now, some of that's game states. RSL had to chase the game. They had to open up. They were losing. But it also goes to what I think I've seen between these two teams, which is that the matchups have been much more even than the final scoreline. The 6-1 win, so anytime a team scores 6 goals, they're obviously finishing opportunities you don't normally finish. That game, I think RSL finished like 0.2 less on XG than RSL. And both of them, RSL had like 55-60% possession in both those games. So I think RSL, they've given up crazy goals to Portland. Portland, in a way, is a really good team to hurt them because they can be really dangerous individually. They don't need time and build-up. And so when RSL pushes numbers forward, it was a lot of Datkovic, Holt, Justin Glad, 1v1 with great players like Asprilla, Valeri, Blanco, all these guys. In this matchup, now you lose 2 of those danger men. It changes the calculus a little bit to me. If I was Gio Savarese, which I'm not, and there's a reason that I don't coach a professional soccer team, and he does, I would look at changing the way my team sets up, whether it's 5 in the back to sort of unlock Blanco or Bravo and Van Rinken to say, hey, we don't have Blanco and Esprit in the attack. You are 2 of the most dangerous attacking fullbacks in MLS. You are also 2 of the more dangerous defending fullbacks in MLS. Let's bring a Bill Tuiloma or someone in. Let's allow them freedom to be high up the field, to attack, to create chances for us, and take some of the defensive responsibility away from them. I would look at that, and then you either slide Jimmy Chara in to the 3 in the midfield, you put him next to one of the strikers, or that's a way to get Mora and Niashgoda on the field. They haven't played together, but Niashgoda hasn't really played that many minutes. I think that allows you to get more danger on the field and fits your shape against RSL. I don't know if you want to make a change like that going into a big playoff game, but you're sort of forced to, right? Like, Gio Savarese's back's against the wall at this point. He's missing his best attacker. He's missing Esprio, who's been one of his best players. Eric Williamson's been out this whole time. They've had a ton of injuries. Niashgoda missed a bunch of time this year. Steve Clark missed a bunch of time. But at this point, I think that could be your most dangerous group.
I do not think he'll do that. Let me just raise my hand and say that. And I understand your logic for doing that. That would be too big of a change for Gio Savarese, who I think, unfortunately for him and unfortunately for the Timbers, consistency is not going to be the deal here. But I don't think you have Niashgoda more at the same time. You save one off the bench. In a game like this, you got to be able to change it off the bench. I would be less surprised to see Santiago Moreno come right in. And as Charlie said, Lorea, who knows? Who knows? I do think that Yimi Chara is the key. This is why you brought Yimi Chara, right? Like Jimmy, I'm sorry. I hear it in my head and I don't say it, and I just want to apologize to Jimmy Chara right now because I've been screwing that up for far too long at this point. But he has killed RSL this season.
I think his best game of the year was that 3-2 win.
Yes.
He was unbelievable in that.
It was unreal in the 6-1 as well. If you give Jimmy Chara space and time to run at people, to make runs off of a forward where he can find space and float a little bit, he can be incredibly dangerous. Without Blanco, without Espria, with Valeri probably not starting in this game, it's him and it's Santiago Moreno. But he's the one that you paid the big bucks for. He's the one with more senior experience. He's the one that has to step up in this match. I think Portland are clear favorites. That's not some crazy take.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Not without
after winning 3 times even without, I still think they are clear favorites.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think when you talk about the way they beat RSL this year, you're talking about a team that looks nothing like the last 3 games we've seen. Decision Day and the 2 playoff games, RSL looked nothing like what they looked like in the regular season, and I think part of that has been the play of Marcelo Silva solidifying things next to Justin Glad. I think the central midfield's been key. The way they've played with Everton Luiz and Pablo Ruiz, solidifying things as well. But I also think the mentality of, we'll just open it up and figure it out, is out the window. They don't play that way anymore. And the progression from Decision Day, where they hung tight and got a late goal, to Seattle, where they didn't have a shot, to outplaying KC for 90 minutes on the road, to me shows that this isn't just a team that's hanging on. That this is a team that now has confidence defensively and it gives them a platform to attack from. And without Blanco and Espria, that's the big key. If they were there, I would agree with you. But without them, I don't know that you can say that the match winners on the field are on Portland's side. So then just from a pure performance point of view, I don't know that they're huge favorites.
This is Felipe Mora erasure once again. No, I'm kidding. I'm just playing the Timbers fan caricature right now. Charlie, look at the RSL side for me. Mm-hmm. They believe. There's no doubt about that at this point. And I think Dave is absolutely right in the sense that this is not the team that sort of like started their way into the postseason, and they're really not the team that got kicked by the Timbers a couple times this year. It's a different team, and that's sort of the beauty of the MLS Cup playoffs. That's the beauty of what Pablo has been able to do over the last, 3 or 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. You have Albert Rusnak back. You have Damir Kreilach in the team. Yep. You have off the bench 2 incredible weapons, and I assume that they will stay in that sort of role in Justin Miram and Anderson Julio. How surprising would it be if RSL won this game, if at all?
It wouldn't be surprising at all. They've knocked the top 2 seeds out. I mean, you're talking about Seattle Sounders. You beat them. You didn't have a shot in the game, which is, it's almost miraculous, but they got it done. And then they go to Sporting Kansas City and they outplayed your team, Weeby. So yes, I do think heading into this one, they are confident. Why wouldn't they be? Because they have gone in as the underdog. They still are going to be the underdog in this one because the Portland Timbers are playing at home and they have all the experience. I do think now they know Bobby Wood is going to come off the bench. He can change the game. I wouldn't be surprised though if Anderson Julio starts this one.
Mm-mm.
I disagree. I think
Completely
the one who
disagree.
starts is Bobby Wood. If you're going to change any of them, because they've said Julio can't. He's not fit to play a full game, and he's been effective as a sub. Miram, I don't think is either.
No.
Would you not start Bobby Wood at this point where you're saying we haven't gotten a lot from Rubio Rubin and start stronger, or would you leave this? We're going to change the game in the 70th minute because we know we can.
I personally would start Bobby Wood, but I just have a feeling that they are comfortable with him coming off the bench because maybe you talk about fitness. It doesn't look like he has his full match fitness that we're accustomed to seeing Bobby Wood. Julio looks so lively that I'm saying maybe it is worth starting him in this type of match. But I do get, okay, we're going to weigh this thing out. We'll defend, try and invite Portland into our half, and then play off the counter for Anderson Julio to come in the second half and light things up because he is drastically different than the other players. So you're getting a game changer off the bench. So that's fine. But Michael Chang and Menendez haven't been playing.
They haven't been it.
They haven't been it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They haven't changed games on the attacking side. But let's dig in a little bit to how you think Pablo will approach this. I think for them right now, the first 45 minutes is a feeling out point. Is 45 minutes to get comfortable, to make things difficult, to maybe hit with they haven't had Rusnak, so that changes everything, by the way. Rusnak can change the way that they can create chances. Sure. And they haven't in the
You don't have to probably use those bench guys because you'll start Rusnak, you're right, instead of a Menendez if he's fit enough. He hasn't played for you in a while, but he obviously played for his national team. But yeah, you could start him in place of Menendez, which I think would be the move. And he just gives you more danger.
And they're going to have the ball. They are going to have the ball. The Timbers that's not their game to sit on the ball and dominate possession and ping it around and slowly try to break you down. And I actually think that's not the effective way to attack RSL anyway. It's how the Timbers have done it in past games, which is to find ways to isolate 4, 5, 6 times a game those guys on the back line. And RSL have done a tremendous job at protecting them so far in these playoffs, in my opinion. Most of the defending that we've seen from Glad and Silva and others, Herrera, etc., that's been so impressive has been okay, we're dropping back as a block. We have sort of the game around us in front of us. All right, I'm going to cut out this cross from a predictable angle. I'm going to win the sort of battle to get to this 50-50 ball in the box, but we're all in position. We've got our lines right. You've got to disrupt the lines if you're the Timbers. And I think to do that, you give RSL the ball, and RSL in these past games have taken the ball with Rusnak, and with Rusnak, they can potentially create opportunities, and that's where the fullback side of things come into play, Dave. But I don't think that RSL are particularly dangerous on the flanks.
Really?
With that starting group.
I would say
you don't think
I would say that's
with that starting group.
You're not talking about Herrera and Brody in that conversation.
I am talking about Herrera and Brody.
Herrera
but again,
was phenomenal.
He is, but it's a little bit more predictable for you if you're the Timbers.
Yeah, but still,
it's just great crosses.
I would say for Sporting Kansas City, that was the only way they were going to beat them as well through the flanks. And I thought it was just going to be Aaron Herrera, but it was actually Brody who stepped up and was the better of the two and actually but played a role.
That's after you change the game with those subs who can stretch the game and make different runs. The guys in that starting group so far haven't made those runs.
Yes,
they haven't been in those positions.
Brody and
there
Herrera
hasn't been the space to cut it back on Brody's right foot and bring that early ball in. The Timbers, they're going to try to not give you that opportunity.
That's how RSL have been having success. They're going to do it the same way. They're going to get Brody and Herrera high and look to whip balls into the box. And Rubio Rubin has not, his hold up play hasn't been good. His runs haven't been good. But if they do get more of the ball in the attacking third, which I don't think they'll have much possession in this one, but if they were, because their style is more, hey, we're going to be direct, go down the wings and whip balls in, because they haven't had time to sit on the ball. They didn't have Albert Rusnak. Now they do. Maybe that changes things a little bit, the dynamic in the attacking half. But arguably, It's just get it, whip it in. And Rubio Rubin, that's not his strength. That he's got to get balls.
It's Damir Krylak's strength.
Yes, but
it's also Mabiala's strength and Zuparic's strength. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but still, that's what they're going to do. That's their
you have
style.
You have to play to your strengths. Mm-hmm. Also, I would say the addition of Rusnak, one, it creates more space for Herrera, right? Because Rusnak's going to come inside, but you have to follow him, and it gives you that pullback option, which hasn't really been there, and that gives Krylak more space to operate. Because if Chara and Paredes aren't tracking Rusnak, if a fullback doesn't come inside, whatever it is, then center backs have to start dealing with and worrying about Rusnak in that space, where he can be dangerous from the top box. What was it, 11 goals, 11 assists this year? Like, he's been goal dangerous, especially under Pablo. And I think that addition changes things for RSL because Menendez isn't that player at all. Mm-mm. And I think Chang's been okay in possession, but he isn't.
Not in the playoffs, though.
I thought he was okay against Casey in the first. I mean, he created the chance that Rubin didn't take, or that fake penalty that Rubin just sort of softly went down with. Chang comes off the wing and creates that. So, but yeah, I think Rusnak's a huge part of that. And I think I get what you're saying, Weeby, in terms of Mabiala and Zuparic. That's their strength. But I don't think RSL has the ability to pull them out and sort of play in possession in the center of the field and get around them.
I'm
just
agreeing
have to play
with
to that.
I'm just saying that to me means for 60 minutes, it's going to be odds against RSL to get the opener, and then when they try to change the game with Miram and Wood, as well as Anderson Julio, that's when that space starts to open up for those balls in.
Should we all just tune in the 60th minute?
Yeah, I don't know. No, do it from the start. Do it from the start. Give me a prediction here. Give me a prediction. You don't got to do too deep on it because we got to talk Philadelphia NYCFC. What's your prediction? Who goes through?
I'm not betting against Portland in Portland. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I've said their experience.
Should we all say Portland just to give RSL that extra boost?
You know, I'm telling you right now, I give so much credit to Pablo and this RSL team because this is all extra credit. They shouldn't be here. They know that. To get to the conference finals and you didn't take a shot in the whole game, and you're in the conference finals, you shouldn't be here, but you are here. And everyone gives you a ton of credit. If you're an RSL fan, fantastic. All the uncertainties throughout the whole year, everything you've been through, and the team's in the conference finals, and arguably they're probably the best they've looked all year right now. You're getting Albert Rusnak back. I don't know what his level of fitness is, but Bobby Wood finally looks like he's getting in some good moments, that he has good chemistry with the guys. Justin Miram looks like a fantastic option off the bench. Anderson Julio is erratic as he can play sometimes. Looks like, he's playing direct, going to goal, creating opportunities. David Ochoa is making big time saves. And then the back line, I think this is probably your best chance, really. So I give you a ton of credit. And I don't want to take anything away from you, but I'm putting all my chips with the Portland Timbers at home.
Man, that was a really long list of RSL players to say, I'm picking Portland.
Clip. That sound you hear right there is Real Salt Lake social team and video editors taking all of that and cutting it right up. All of my chips on Portland. Everybody in the world should bet on the Portland Timbers.
I did not go that far. And I gave all my props.
They'll probably clip me out right there.
Yeah.
Charlie, you're wearing a Boston College sweatshirt and you're ragging on Ali Bedoya. Is it because he's a Harvard guy now?
No,
Is that what happened?
Oh, well, I got my Colorado Yeti here too as well.
Nice.
No, I was just giving Bedoya a little stick.
No, it's because he's a Harvard guy now. You're not a fan anymore.
Yeah.
So I picked 3 of the 4 conference finalists incorrect. Both the MLS Cup teams I picked are out. Preseason, I picked a team to win Supporters Shield that didn't make the playoffs, and a team to win MLS Cup that lost their only playoff game. So take this with a grain of salt.
Oh my God. Look at the direction he's going here.
I talked myself into RSL. I talked myself into the way they played against KC, if they can get anywhere near that level in possession, and the way they're playing defensively, unless Jimmy Chara has a game like that, unless I see something from Niashkota that I think he's capable of in this league. I have not seen it since he's come back from his ACL.
And understandably so, yeah.
100%. And I think it's what we're going to see next year. Besides them being home, I don't feel a lot of reasons to pick Portland in this game. Now, they've won the last 2 games in the playoffs, and they won the first one at home fairly dominant. I'm sure they will. But I like the way RSL's playing. I like the way they set up against this team. I think Rusnak's a pretty big addition for them to bring in not just quality, but also to just change things for them, right? Like, you've had this thing working, but you look at it and you're like, do we have enough bullets in the chamber to take Portland in conference finals? And then it's like, boom, here's a guy who has started 34 games, has 11 goals, 11 assists, one of your star players, just comes out fresh to sort of add to what you've been doing. I like a lot of that.
Set pieces.
I also like the character of
I was just going to throw set pieces out too.
Mabiala. That's all I'm going to say. He's a beast.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it out there too. Here's what I'll say about this game, and then I'll give a quick prediction at the end. I think for a lot of people, you don't even know what I'm going to say.
I do.
I know, but I just like that you're going to give the quick prediction.
I know where it's going.
Yeah. No, you don't.
I do.
I think a lot of people are looking at this matchup and they're kind of groaning a little bit to themselves, non-Portland and RSL fans, and like, really, like we don't have the top 3 seeds here. Like, what the hell happened? This isn't that entertaining. It's like, RSL aren't even that good. They've gotten lucky. The Timbers are missing their best player. I look at this matchup and we've talked through it. It is so incredibly even and actually fascinating. I think this game is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be super entertaining. I think it's very, very evenly matched, to be honest with you. And that's wonderful. I want to pick RSL in my heart. # neutrals for RSL. # no shots. Big win. # Peter Vermees mouth wide open.
# ad.
But I'm going to take the Timbers. I'm going to take the Timbers in this one. I know it's stupid to talk about odds with what has happened with RSL. I just think the odds that they do this 3 straight times on the road are so low that I'm gonna go the other way. I think I'm gonna go Portland for the 4th win in 4 games, but I think it's gonna be so tight, and there's gonna be some dramatic, crazy, weird moment that tips everything on its head. And so far, it's sort of been RSL that have like had that to them. Outside of the Mabiala, of course, against Colorado, that was a big moment too. But I don't know. I'm not betting against Gio Savarese in knockout rounds at home. I just don't. That seems strange to me to do.
If the way this whole thing ends, by the way, is if San Diego comes and like has the game-winning moment, first of all, you build the statue this year. Done by New Year's. Has to
get the smelting done right now.
Yeah.
Like,
get that metal
get that
in.
iron prepared.
Make it out of wood, right? Let's carve that thing out of wood. It's Portland.
That's true.
Yeah. That sounds down your...
Nice Douglas fir.
Going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A little DIY project for Timber Joey in the offseason.
But I think as a neutral, that would be the coolest thing, is to have Diego Valeri have a moment right at the end of his career in front of that crowd in a home game to get them to MLS Cup. It'd be special.
Facts.
This game, I really do think this is going to be a fun game. The storylines are incredible, even with the players on the Timbers side missing. Let's talk about the East now. Union, NYCFC.
Who voted Miles Robinson best 11?
We will talk about that in a second. Speaking of Damir Kreilach, he got absolutely just highway robbery.
But he wasn't in ours, right?
Because we built a real team, but in the way that we'll get to the best 11 in a little bit. Okay. We'll get there. Union NYCFC, first MLS Cup appearance for either club. You can see who goes, 3 p.m. Eastern, ABC, ESPN Deportes. By that time, they'll know whether they could host or not. Of course, if the Timbers win, they can't host. If RSL wins, whoever wins that game will host. Philly's trying to go one step farther. Last year, they were the team that was bowing out as the number 1 seed in the playoffs, and it was like, damn, they didn't really show up here. We're going to talk to Sam Stejskal about Jim Curtin's future in just a little bit. We won't go into that right now, but it could be up in the air a little bit. Apparently, Chris Albright's trying to lure him to FC Cincinnati.
Poach him.
Poach him. Where do we start with this one? Probably with Taty, right? Like, we haven't gone into the Revs, but my God, Charlie, what is Taty doing? What on earth? He scores the goal to put him up 2. You just got to survive.
That's it.
It's all you got. You just got to not leave your feet and just wreck Brandon Bye's ankles literally on the edge of the New England 18 with no attack incoming. And this is Taty, right? Like, live by Taty, die by Taty. Like, he scores the goals for you. He's a volume guy. He touched it out of bounds, but he got the big play. And then he was like, I'm so wired to pressure, and be aggressive that I see this ball in an unwinnable position. And I'm just going to throw myself at it. And now he's out. He's suspended. 2 yellow cards, both of them extremely legitimate. Both of them poor tackles that had no impact whatsoever on the game. And now your best player and the Golden Boot winner is out.
Yes, and I would say, yeah, it's a massive miss. I mean, and to be honest, he probably should have had a couple, at least one other goal in that match when the ball was played in behind and he's in the corner of the 6 and he's caught between two minds of taking it down and finishing or hitting it one first time. But I look at this New York City FC team and I say, they have players who can come in and make a difference. The problem is it wasn't just Taty Castellanos who's probably going to miss this one. James Sands looked like he picked up a hamstring strain, and Tavon Gray. So that's the issue. So you have, I think Ishmael Tashori-Shradi is one player who can come in and really be a game changer. When he's fit and healthy, I'm like, man, this guy could be scoring 15 goals a season in Major League Soccer. He's gifted. But he's not a 9. You can play him as a withdrawn 9 in this matchup against the Union. Also, Thiago is a player who has burners and can be a player who can cause a number of problems for this Union side, especially when they get their outside backs high and you can get Jacob Glasnes or Jack Elliott isolated 1v1. And then you need a big performance from Santi Rodriguez, who I think we saw his best performance against the Revolution this playoff match. He comes in, he can score goals, he's good on the ball. They outpossessed the Revs, and it was not even a game. They were the better team. The better team moved on. On that night, they outplayed the Revs in every single way. And sure, you can look at the Revs and say, man, you should have just made changes and substitutions. And if you change the way they play, you probably would have been able to get something out of this. And it probably wouldn't have gone to penalties. But New York City FC were the better team. So, yes, you're missing Taty Castellanos, but I'm also concerned about James Sands and Tavon Gray if they're going to be healthy for this one.
I know we're not looking back to the Revs NYC game as much because we have so much to talk about. Mm-hmm. Tavon Gray is injured. You're winning. Why is he playing right back? That is one of the craziest moments in MLS history. Why, when you are defending, do you not just move him up to the midfield line, say if the ball gets you, hold it, and move someone who can move to right back? That was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. But I agree with Charlie that on top of Taty, I mean, Tavon Gray was your third option at right back. Like, James Sands was your second, and now he's your third. And if him and Sands both can't go, one, are you starting Tony Rocha at center, in center mid? Are you starting him at right back? Are you trying to slide one of the left backs over to right back? You have a few decisions that Ronny Deila has to make. And then remember, that's going up against Kai Wagner. Mm-hmm. One of the key outlets to Philly's attack is Wagner's ability to attack down that left side. And that's who you're defending with in this game, which is why I do think you'll see Medina start again, because I think he gives you more defensively. He was terrible in the final third in that conference semifinals. He missed a sitter in the first half and then another one in the second half that could have finished the game. And Taty wouldn't have even had to score that goal. But I would go with Eber. I don't know how much fitness he has. And I don't know.
Too big a risk.
I don't know. He doesn't. You get 5 subs.
95 minutes the whole year. He in 7. He hasn't even played he hasn't started a game.
For sure.
How could you do that? It's Tyus Magno or it's Andrade, and that's it.
So for the way
or Tajuri-Shradi. I mean, it's you have 3 players. You didn't get subbed in the playoffs.
No one got subbed in. Don't act like Thiago was the special player that they used. They literally didn't sub a player.
Well, understandable, Eber didn't get subbed
all of regulation.
Because Taty's there and he's going to be there. He's your forward that he gets sent off.
And the trust from Deila is not there then, is what we're saying. And I think when you look at Eber, the way he unlocks Maxi Morales and Santiago Rodriguez, even if he's not sharp, even if he can't stretch the field, even if he's not scoring, I think you're putting your other attackers in their best position and their best style to change the game. Because you know Eber is going to come deep and lay off and connect and play 1-2s with Maxi and pull center backs around and make their life hard and allow Santi Rodriguez those channels to run into and allow Maxi Morales that space to operate. I think that's where you get your best thing. Clearly, I'm the Bobby Warshaw Galaxy Brain guy today. I'm fine with that. And I still think we're not talking about one person out. NYCFC are 6 players down at this point. So, yeah, you have to do something a little bit weird or different to put your team in the best position to win.
Do you, though? Why do you have to do something weird or different?
Because you are missing the only player who has scored goals for your team. You are missing all of your right backs. You are missing your two starting center mids.
So your solution to that is to play a guy from the start in your biggest game in the history of the club who's only played 95 minutes this year and is coming off an ACL.
My solution is to play a guy who has been there for my team in these moments. My solution is to play a guy who has a relationship with my star player who is going to have to run this game.
That relation, I mean, that's like being, you know, I've been gone for a year and a half and I'm back, but we still have the relationship. We haven't done it in a long time. On a soccer field, I don't think that works. Tyus Magno, he is the clear and obvious solution.
He didn't get off the bench.
I know he didn't. But Taty's there and then they're down to 10 men. He has been the guy that they've gone to when Taty's out. And I know he's not a true center forward. I know Tyus Magno's not. I know Ismail Tajiri-Shradi's not. But the only true center forward you have has played 95 minutes in 7 sub appearances, most of them like of the 2 to 5 minute variety.
Yeah,
he's
not playing.
It doesn't compute.
He's not starting.
It doesn't compute.
For sure. So you guys are going to start a 19-year-old who's been in this country for 5 months.
At least he can. At least you know he can play like he can play 45. We don't even know. We don't even know Eber can play 45. I know you have the 5 subs.
It still sets the tone for you, whether it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But if he can't go 45 minutes, I would agree. None of us are in that locker room, so we don't know what
we're yelling at each other about something we know nothing about, which is fun.
Yeah. Hypothesis.
But, what about the Union side? Because they're at home. No Taty. These injury issues you're talking about, Charlie. I think Tavon Gray's probably going to be fine. He said it's just a cramp, so it wasn't like he pulled it or anything like that. He seemed fine after the game. TBD. He's got young legs. He'll probably be okay. James Sands is a bigger question mark since he left the game. The Union seem... I would trust my ability to defend if I was the Union, but I feel like a Maxi-Santi combination is what breaks you, because they're so good at sort of keeping the ball out of the middle of the field and limiting your ability to play in the spaces that you want to play in are the Union. But Santi and Maxi are really good at figuring out a way to play in spaces you don't want them to play in. And if we see the Santi we saw against the Revs, like you said it, I completely agree with it. I've been saying it for a couple of days. That is the best we've seen him. He was absolutely spectacular. And I'm not talking just about the goal, though that was really good. By the way, every other opportunity he had to put the ball in frame was pretty poor. But in possession, in a chance creation sense, he unbalances teams. He makes defenders look lost with his movement, and him and Maxi just seem to have a relationship that really works well together. Like, how would you go about this if you're the Union?
I'm looking at my attackers. Has not had the best of playoffs. Shabilko has been non-existent, and then Sergio Santos has been causing problems, and he's effective, but he's missing. Every shot that he takes is in the stands or it's in the river. So I think you're looking at this game and you're okay. You're definitely on the front foot. You're positive. You're feeling great that Taty Castellanos is not on the pitch, because he's very good at causing problems and getting under the skin of defenders and playing off the back shoulder and combining. But you need to figure out, because Leon Flock hasn't been strong, Kasper Szpilko, Sergio Santos, even Jamiro Montero. So figuring out what is the best way to hurt this New York City FC team, which I think is playing in behind Collins and Chanot, which teams haven't been able to do because they've kept possession. And then when they haven't had possession, they drop, and they've dropped really well, and they've been organized. So I give Ronnie Deila a ton of credit of getting this team, or putting this team in the best position to win, because you're not being able to stretch Chanot and Collins. Sergio Santos can do that. So maybe this is the moment where you start Sergio Santos and you bring a Kasper Schubilko off the bench.
I think that it's both of them. I think you start both. You drop Gazdag as you go back to the diamond, you drop Gazdag to the 10, and you slide Montero deeper in place of Flock. Mm-hmm. Because you know Montero will do the work there. That Flock does. And it seems he gets a goal in the last game, whatever. It seems like Gazdag is the one guy who has something in this group that he can do something individually, a moment of brilliance, whatever, that you want on the field. I agree with you, though, that Sergio Santos makes them more dangerous whether he can finish or not. Because the chances that they get when he's on the field, that he gets, don't exist when he's not on the field. And while Gustavo Bo was invisible and terrible in the conference semifinals, there was space for him and Buxa to operate together when NYC was high up the field. And I think that'll exist in this game. So I would go with the two forwards rather than the Christmas tree so that you have that support to go against Collins and Chanot 2v2 at times. And it makes the most sense, and you're kind of having a more experienced lineup in there. And so that makes sense to me for Philly. I think that's Philly's decision.
It's good for Philly that Sergio Santos has been so wasteful so far. Because I don't know how math works, but it feels like because he was so bad before in front of goal, he's due. You know, like I'm sitting at the blackjack table, baby. I busted like 10 straight times. I'm winning the next one.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works either.
It isn't.
I don't think that's how any of it
I am hopeful for him. I'm hopeful for Sergio Santos that this is the game that sort of because you can see the pain in his face on all those opportunities, right? Of like, oh God, like why can't I just get that final touch or that final movement right? Like for the Union, this is what it all comes down to, right? These are the guys they spent TAM on. These are supposed to be the goal scorers. This has been the question all year. I've been writing, talking about on this show, etc. all year. Like if they want to take a step further, these are the guys that have to do it. Nobody doubts their ability to like muck up a game and defend. They're one of the top 3 teams in the league.
Can I throw a little wrench in there and just say Schubilko played Atlanta off the field and got them to a CCL semifinal, which is a next step for this club.
Sure, but that's the problem. Is like one out of 7 times he does that, and the other 6 times you're like,
yeah,
what happened to that 1 out of 7 times?
Yeah, he has not been there in the playoffs. I also think we should go back to the fact that they made it to the CCL semifinal and now they're in the conference finals.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty
all
damn
of the
impressive.
other teams being like, "Oh, we can't make a run and also contend in MLS."
Do it to him. The CCL king.
Tell him.
All right, guys.
What can't you do? When you say you can't, you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Say you can. Say you can.
Wow, inspirational nonprofit.
I know.
From the both of you. But yeah, I the wins, the confidence they got from the CCL run, you've seen it in the last 2 games. A belief that they will get it done, even when the game's messy. Like the way they have played Philly in these 2 home games in the playoffs, the body language, the mentality has been different than I think what we saw over the last 2 years in the postseason. And I think that comes from this CCL run. And Jim said that. And Senior President Ali Bedoya has said that. So I think you've seen that.
Can I just say that I don't think that Leon Flock comes out of the team for this game?
Yeah, I got nothing.
I just don't see it happening. Given the way NYCFC dominated in that midfield area and how good Philly have been at eliminating that for other teams, I don't see him and
it's a different game.
And his particular set of skills coming out of this.
But it's a different type of game. They haven't played this opponent.
Yeah.
And to NYC's credit, they played Philly off the park down a man for much of that decision day game. It was at home, but they were the better team, creating more chances, and they were down a man from the 20th minute on.
I just think if one player is not going to be on between Flock and Montero, it'll be Montero.
Your DP, your only DP?
But given what it's been like the second half of the year with that relationship and the decisions Jim has made, I would think it'd be Montero out the field. Give me your predictions. Who's it going to be? Home team? Yes, no?
Oh, boy.
NYCFC, sans Taty?
I think again, I know this is a cop-out, but I'm going to go with the home team. I feel like New York City FC put so much into the game to beat the Revs that it's natural you come off the high that there's a drop-off. And without Taty Castellanos on the pitch, I just don't think they're going to have enough in the attacking third, even though I think Tajuri Shradi and Thiago, even Santi Rodriguez, Max Morales, all capable players who can come up with something at any moment. I just think the Union playing at home, being super direct, I think they're going to defend really well. You have Andre Blake, who's also the X factor for the Union. I'm going to go with them. Oh, is that a ring?
Somebody's at my front door.
Okay,
yeah. That was like I should have just pretended like that was a magic take from Charlie. Like, ooh.
I'm gonna go with the Union at home. They win.
But
it's gonna be super tight.
I agree with all that. I do too.
I think Philly's inability to score is what keeps it alive. But I think you're looking at a Philly team that's dangerous on set pieces. NYC gives us up a goal on set pieces in the last game. They've been hurt by them in the past, especially in moments like this. I think you're looking at a home team as well with the crowd, the atmosphere, and just Taty is what makes it all go for them. And he has been over the course of the year, and he was in that playoff game. And so I just think for NYCFC, you have to be uber dangerous in possession to get Philly on their back, on their heels. I don't know that exists. And then he is also the one who sets the tone. When NYCFC does press, when they create chances.
I was just going to say.
Like Taty coming back and getting that red card, he's always going into tackles like that because he is the leader. He gets this, he gives the energy to this team. And while Maxi and Sean John are, great leaders, and Chanel and Collins have been there, all that stuff, I still think when Taty's not there, you see a different intensity to this team, and I don't know that they can get it done without him.
All right, let's, before we get to Sam Stejskal, do we want to put a bow on New England's season right now, Charlie? We're kind of running out of time.
Yeah.
I feel like Bruce is right. It was a successful season, but there's an MLS Cup sized hole in the trophy case still.
Yeah. And that's the issue, I guess, with most people is you had a phenomenal season, record setting season. But if you had it to choose all day, every day, MLS Cup or Supporter Shield, everyone's going to say MLS Cup. It's a no brainer, but you have to take the positives. This is a season that is going to go down in history. Maybe not touched again for a long time. But going into next year, the benefits are you qualify for the CCL for the first time. It's a opportunistic team. You're looking to make some moves because you got to replace Tejan. That's a must. If you want to win MLS Cup next year, if that's the goal, you have to bring in someone to replace Tejan Buchanan. Figuring out what you're going to do with Adam Buksa. Are you going to sell him or are you going to keep him? Carlos Hill is there to stay. You've just locked down Brandon Bai. You have Matt Turner, who I think wants to stay. So you're talking about extending a contract extension for Matt Turner. You have some great pieces, but you fell short when it really mattered. And I think that was due to a lack of match fitness. You were off a month, but in the game, not changing things around, not making the right substitutions at the right time. That's what came back to hurt this team. But they gained a lot of experience, and the future is bright. So I think everyone's leaving the season proud. But there's that whole, like you said, man, we left a lot on the table.
Yep, absolutely. And TBD on some other things. I mean, Bruce Arena's not committed saying he'll be back. He didn't come out in that press conference afterwards and be like, hey, no worries, I'm going to be here. We're going to run this back. It's all going to be good. He was sort of saying, hey, we'll see. Given his age, given what he's accomplished, you can kind of understand that. So big offseason for the Revs. By the way, RIP to the crayon flag. No star for that one. Maybe for the new one next year. But congratulations to the Revs. We talked about it all year. Their excellence, their ability to win tight games, the individual quality this season, from top to bottom, just an incredible season for that club overall. Real quick, best 11 came out. Matt Turner's the goalkeeper. Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, Yaimar are the defenders. João Paulo, Carlos Hill, Hani Mukhtar, and Tejan Buchanan in the midfield, and then the forwards, Raul Ruiz Diaz, Taty Castellanos, and Gustavo Bo.
Ooh, some people are going to be...
Yeah, you know what we think about. Look, all due respect to everybody in that best 11. The process is what it is. We talked about it when we did our 5 best 11s on this show that I will stand by over this one, I believe. It's a good one, but I don't think Miles Robinson, though he had a great season, would be in this group for me. I don't think Tejan would be in the group. Damir Kreilach got just I can't understand it, why he wouldn't be in this team. And I don't think Gustavo Bo, to me, would be there either. I would have put one of the wingers from Sporting Kansas City. But feel free to yell at us in the mailbag about that. The other big news in MLS right now is, of course, the open coaching positions. And who better to tell us all about that than Sam Stejskal? Oh, time now for an AT&T 5G call to the field. We're giving you the special treatment, Sam, because we're going directly to my old apartment. I believe that is, what is that, my kid's bedroom we're in right now? Or is that I used to sleep where you are sitting right now.
Yeah, I think this was your bedroom, which is I don't like talking about this.
Yeah, I know. We had to start this way just to get you throw you off just a little bit to start. How you doing, man? How you enjoying?
Well, I'm rattled now. I was good,
very Jurgen Klinsmann of Levy.
How are you feeling about the playoffs right now, man? What's your favorite moment? Are you hyped? Are you ready for the conference finals?
My favorite moment of the playoffs. Man, it's been a weird playoffs. I feel like it's been pretty ragged, and the quality hasn't really been there. The games haven't been great, I think, for being honest. Some of them have been plenty dramatic, right? And they haven't not been fun, right? The Philly-Nashville game was crazy in a lot of different ways. It wasn't particularly an advertisement for what MLS can be as a soccer league, I think. My favorite moment of the playoffs, I think it's just the RSL story, honestly, in totality. The game in Seattle, another game that wasn't exactly pleasing on the eyes, and that was very much by design from RSL's point of view. They survived without taking a single shot in 120 minutes. Guys, I ask this seriously. Have you ever seen that before anywhere in the world? And do you think we will ever see that ever again, where a team doesn't take a single shot in late, high stakes game?
MLS is a copycat league, Sam. People are watching that saying, hey, maybe us, why not us? And look, the Vancouver Whitecaps under Carl Robinson tried to do it back in the day.
I know, but they didn't advance. They didn't advance, right?
Yeah, it didn't work for them, huh?
So, yeah, and then scoring at the death at Kansas City for the second time in 2 games that they played there. They did that, back to back. Well, no, they played Vancouver, but anyway. So yeah, I think it's the RSL story. No surprise. I think that's one for a lot of people, but that's it for me.
All right, let's talk about why you're here. You put out a story, as you often do, on The Athletic that makes its way straight into our rundown. Starts the rundown even. A real roundup of the coaching openings around the league and what's going down with those. Of course, right now all eyes are on the playoffs, but there are, at this point, not 24 teams, because Charlotte's coming in, doing their work in the background, trying to get ready for 2022. 5 open spots as far as head coaching goes in the league right now. LAFC, Dallas, RSL, Houston, Cincinnati. Some of those have some pretty strong rumors or reports linked to them. For instance, Dallas, they're reportedly going to hire U.S. men's national team assistant Nico Estevez. You're saying that Cincy might be onto something, and this is the big story here. Walk us through what's going down. The Philadelphia Union are trying to get to MLS Cup for the first time in their history. They're in their first ever conference final. And At the same time, Chris Albright is up the road saying, hey, my old buddy in Philly, Jim Curtin, we want him. That is a huge, huge story.
Yeah, and this doesn't happen so often in MLS. We haven't seen a huge history of this, of teams trying to steal coaches from other teams, right? But that's what's happening here. Chris Albright left Philadelphia in October after 7+ years in their technical department to become GM of FC Cincinnati, and he's trying to make a run at Jim Curtin. Jim Curtin signed a 2-year contract extension in June, so he's locked up with the Union until 2023, which basically means the Union can just say no and say, get out of here, Cincinnati. We're hanging on to our guy. And from what I've been told, that's their current stance. Cincinnati has made at least one offer to buy Curtin out of his contract to Philadelphia. That was declined. And that seems to be the stance going forward. Is there some number they can hit that would make the Union change their mind? Maybe. It seems like everything and everyone has a price, right? But I would be a little bit surprised if Curtin left. Maybe he gets a new contract out of the situation, but I would be a little surprised if he left. And then Cincinnati would move on to other candidates, maybe Pat Noonan, from what I've been told, Curtin's assistant in Philadelphia. They've also interviewed Pablo Mastroeni, the RSL interim head coach, and they interviewed Luchi Gonzalez as well, although he appears set to become an assistant with the USMNT and trade jobs with Nico Estevez, who looks, from what me and several others have been told, is set to take the Dallas job.
Let's dig into this Curtin stuff and just try to imagine, and I'm opening this up. Dave, Charlie, your thoughts welcome here. Who does this make sense for Cincinnati? No doubt about that. What Jim Curtin has done, he's the second most tenured coach in MLS, linking sort of the academy to the first team, winning with, let's say, fewer resources spent than maybe other teams. I don't think that's a stretch at all to say that about the Union approach. Cincinnati spends money. It's just that their money doesn't equal points at this point. Like, how does this make sense for Jim Curtin? To move, that is. I understand the leverage side of it of like, hey, I just signed a new 2-year contract, but you got teams here offering money to try to sign me. Like, I think probably a little bit more security and a little bit more money should be coming my way. I would get that from Jim's side. How would it make sense in your mind, Charlie, for him to go to Cincinnati? Like, what scenario matches up there?
Well, one for sure is security and the relationship when you're talking about knowing that you can trust in who's going to allow you to have power. I think Jim Curtin doesn't really have much say in Philadelphia. Yes, he can pick his team, but he doesn't have much power. If he was to go to Cincinnati, and the only thing that I think would drive him to go is, one, a legit contract offer, and two, more say so with the roster, who he needs, who he can go out and get. If you're empowering Jim Curtin and you're trusting him to get results, then things change for him because he is a Philly guy. His family's happy and he's done well with the squad. But if you're going to say, hey, we're going to give you more responsibility and we're going to give you a better contract, long-term security, then yes, I think that's what's going to turn his head.
So what's interesting to me on the Philly side is there's no turning back from this moment. And I think the Britishism is their heads turn for a player, right? Jim Curtin's contract's up in 2023. That's only in 2 seasons. If you are saying no to something he wants to do right now, I think it limits the chance that he's going to stay. And if you're Philadelphia, I think you have to look at it and say, if Pat Noonan's the guy, you can't afford to let Pat Noonan go to another club and be head coach and then lose Jim Curtin in 2 years. So if I'm Philly, I don't want this to happen. I didn't want this to happen. It has already happened, though. And I think you have to look at it long term and say, what's the safest move for us? Now, if Jim Curtin, if it's all about, if there's space to work there, as Charlie said, if it's about the contract offer and then his influence in the team, and that's something that Ernst Tanner can come to the table with and say, I can give you that here, then, okay, it works out for everyone. He signs a new longer-term deal and stays. But if not, if I'm Philly, I don't just say no. Because if you just say no, you're probably looking at a coach who's going to wind down his deal. Maybe he leaves next year because no one wants him to be a coach on his last year of his deal again, where the players don't know, well, if he'll be there, he doesn't have the backing, he doesn't have the trust, all of that. I think Philly's kind of already pushed into this corner.
Interesting timing. Not ideal timing for the Union, given the position they're in as a club right now, going to their first conference final. Sam, how do you think this plays out? You think the Union just say, as they're saying now, and understandably so, and then obviously a lot of things go on in the background and the relationships between, Jay Sugarman, the owner, and of course Ernst Tanner, who has control of the roster, and then Jim. I mean, there'll be intense conversations, I'm sure, and have been about this for a while now. Like, what do you see in the future? Get out your crystal ball.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that they say no, but to what Charlie and Dave were saying, like, that might come with a new contract, right, for Curtin in Philadelphia. Because to Dave's point specifically, if you just say no and you don't make him whole in some other way, then yeah, he'll probably wind it down and leave in a couple of years. Unless you think he's so committed to the idea of being with his hometown club that you can kind of leverage that. But one other thing I wanted to add is that there are like structural elements at play here. Weeby, you mentioned Cincinnati spends a lot of money. Philadelphia doesn't, right? Philly has done really well last year. They're on a great playoff run this year. They made a good run in the CCL, but like, it sort of feels like how are they going to improve on this, right? And is this the best they're ever going to do with how they model themselves and how they structure that club? And if so, like, as a head coach, if you're Jim Curtin, do you look to somewhere else where, hey, they're going to spend that money and they're going to give me as a coach the opportunity to really push forward and contend year after year after year in a sustainable way? And I think that's something that kind of needs to be considered in this discussion too. I
mean, he said on this show and many other places, he doesn't lack for ambition, like Jim is not one of those coaches, and he could be, where he's like, hey man, I started he said, coaching the U10s, U12s, and I worked my way up and I'm so thankful, and he obviously is. But he has been very clear about ambition being something that drives him.
But ambition in Europe, right?
Correct.
And I think if he really wants to go to Europe and he's really focused on that, then Philly's probably a better place for him now than Cincinnati.
Yeah, I agree. You have the connection with Ernst Tanner. It's been clear that Ernst Tanner has deep, connections in Europe, the way he's gotten players, the people he's worked with. That becomes your reference. That becomes your connection there. And then also the project he has at Philly, I think, is more appealing to the type of club that would bring Jim Curtin in.
And you're judged differently.
Yeah.
Right? He's done well, right? So first of all, your starting point is much higher in Philly than it is in Cincy, just in terms of results, right? So if you go to Cincy and it takes a couple of years, the shine might wear off a little bit. But in Philly, even if the results dip a little, but you still make the playoffs, you can say, well, I'm doing it with academy kids and no budget, and the standards are different. And other clubs that might be interested in him in MLS or elsewhere would view him differently, I think, with that level of success in Philly than in Cincy.
I would also say that it still feels like, not as much as it was, but that Jim Curtin was playing year to year. And it was always, did he do enough? You know, even with what he did last year with this team, it's only a two years extension. It's not, he's the future. We're going to give him a 5-year and we're going to give him a 7-year because he's young. He's a Philly guy. We know what we have in Jim Curtin. It's still, we'll give you 2 more years. Because we're still not fully convinced that you can be the guy and you can make the decisions. So I don't think he also gets the necessary respect that he thinks he should feel and that he deserves. So if Chris Albright is coming, this new shiny toy, and they're starting from ground zero and the expectations are super low, but he's going to be given a nice transfer kitty, as they'd say in England, Gas, then, hey... I mean,
Champions League
long-term security, and and one of your boys is the GM. I'd say, you know, if you're having a conversation with your wife, it's not too bad to make that move if you're going to be given a lot of things that are going to make, I think, the whole experience that much better.
Wow, Charlie just goes over to Liverpool once, little tea time, you know.
he's only worried about Mohamed Salah. That's
just all the lingo is right there. Now, the other complicating factor here as well is that Pat Noonan's up for a lot of jobs, right? And like that would be the obvious candidate to replace Jim Curtin regardless. So like, if the union are looking around being like, well, we don't want to walk away and have no eggs in our basket. We'll see what happens with this.
I think they'll have some wiggle room there, though, right? Because you look, Dallas appears to be closed. RSL will probably go to Mastroeni. And then you're looking at LAFC. You know, I haven't heard Noonan in the running there. That doesn't mean he's not, but I haven't heard it. So, you know, those jobs are dwindling. So Philly maybe has a little more security in that.
But the other things, I agree with you, although it seems like Cincinnati will go with Noonan. Potentially, if they don't get Curtin.
Yeah, but then Philly has Curtin, so they don't need to worry about.
But the other thing is, I think Pat Noonan is now that first 3 list for whoever gets let go next season, right? Like if the next moves that happen, whatever they are, middle of the year next season, Pat Noonan's going to come in for an interview probably fairly immediately because
if he doesn't get a job, I expect that he'll end up in Cincinnati at the end of this.
And look, if he doesn't, Pat Noonan is he's from Baldwin, Missouri, excuse me. Outside St. Louis. St. Louis is going to need a head coach at some point. Like there are more jobs.
Bradley Carnell, Red Bull assistant. Keep an eye on that one. He's interviewed. I reported that a while ago. And
did you see the rumor today?
I didn't see the rumor today.
Going to bring him to Manchester United.
Well, maybe not then.
Charlie,
from what I'm told, there's still St. Louis is still in on it. So we'll see.
I was going to say, where's the Shalry Joseph rumors?
There we go.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that. Let's start seeding that one. We absolutely should. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Anybody? I don't know much about Nico Estevez. I'm not going to lie. I know he's Valencia a while ago, was an interim there, methodology with the crew, and then up as an assistant with Berhalter, and then, of course, went to the national team with him. Do you guys have any additional information? Like, what would FC Dallas be getting here?
So I've heard him do a couple talks when he was with Columbus at the youth levels, and he's very similar to Greg in the way he sees the game. He was brought in to Columbus because they were revamping the academy. And you look at Aiden Morris, right? And you look at the players that have come through because of the work he did at the academy level. And he changed things a lot. He's steeped in Spanish style, which I think is different than what most MLS teams operate in. And a lot of the coaches he brought in were from Spain, which would be a massive shift for FC Dallas, which has been fairly American, Mexico, and South American leaning and looking in terms of their coaches and their style. But he is someone who aligns with everything they want, which is he believes that if you have a style through your club and you give young players confidence that they can elevate their game and be difference makers in this league. So He fits into everything FC Dallas wants. And I think his coaching background is a bit more tactical than maybe what FC Dallas has had in the past, which that's the only thing that's a real difference from maybe what Oscar and Lucci brought to the group.
I was about to say, I don't understand why Lucci was fired, especially when you bring in a guy in Nico who has a similar background, not much first team experience as a head coach, apart from 2 games that he interimed with Valencia 10 years ago or whatever it was, and a lot of experience on the youth level and a decent amount of experience as an assistant. And so you fire Lucci to replace him with someone with a similar profile to Lucci. And I'm just kind of left shaking my head.
By the way, who isn't embedded in your club, who hasn't helped build out your entire academy, who doesn't have established relationships. Oh, look, we're all on the same boat. Like
what are you trying to do? Like, I don't get it. Like, if you're going to fire Lucci and then hire someone with a very similar background to him, like, what was the point of firing Lucci in the first place? And of course, many things can go wrong, but you look at what Dallas was. They didn't have a good record with Lucci Gonzalez this year. They had a much worse record after he left, right? And they're going to probably ask this guy, Nico Estevez, to do the same job that Lucci did, right? Which is develop and sell young players, try and make the best of a relatively low budget on the international market, and then contend for MLS Cup. And I don't know. I don't get it with FC Dallas, man. They do great things with the academy, and they should be applauded for that, and they are. But if you're going to be a developmental club, be a developmental club, right? Like, square the ambition with the reality. Or if you're going to be that ambitious, then change how you behave.
Can we talk about another team in Texas? We really enjoyed having Pat Onstad on our Decision Day show. It was a wonderful 30 minutes, and he was a really good sport as we basically screamed and yelled about goals being scored in the background and interrupted him. Houston Dynamo. We got Pablo reported. We got Lucci reported. Certainly Lucci makes sense, but as he said, looks like he's going to the U.S. national team. And then, quote, also looking in Mexico. What does that mean, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew more. I've heard some rumors, but nothing that I'm comfortable like throwing out there. Otherwise, I would have done it in that article. So yeah, I've been told that they're looking at a coach in Mexico. What that means, I don't know. You know, if you want to throw out some names, and I'm not saying that these names are connected to the Dynamo job, but just some guys that like, hey, they're in Mexico and maybe they'd be interested in MLS. Nacho Ambriz, I think, would be one.
Didn't he just get hired, though? He just got hired at Toluca.
Did he get hired?
I think he just got hired at Toluca, because that would have been the first name that I threw out for Houston.
Yeah, the other one would be Jaime Lozano. If you can bring him back,
like, that would be good.
The other one would be Jaime Lozano, who was the Olympic coach for Mexico. And, you know, so those are the two that kind of jump to mind when I think about coaches in Mexico. Although, of course, my info on Ambriz, you know, I got to stay up to date with the news out of Toluca. Got to do a
he did just get hired. I actually thought LAFC was going to look at Ambriz as well. I was a little surprised that they at least didn't bring him in. He seems to make sense for their profile, but...
maybe they did.
Yeah. By the way, we have a quota here. A lot of people hitting us up saying they demand LAFC coverage on every show. Ideally, 30 to 40% of all airtime should go to LAFC. So in the interest of meeting that, we should probably talk about them. Steve Cherundolo, reportedly a candidate. Ante Razov. This is coming from a number of people, including, I believe, you, Sam. And then Juan Carlos Osorio, Kyle Bangura over at ESPN is saying he is in the running for this. Makes sense. He and John Thornton have a connection from the past in Major League Soccer, Chicago Fire.
Fire days. Yeah.
Oh, fire.
The glory days for Chicago.
What do you think they're going to do? Because we said on this show, man, like from Bob Bradley's perspective, I understand moving on to different pastures. From LAFC's perspective on Bob Bradley, it's sort of hard to understand.
Yeah, I think that was just one that sort of ran its course effectively. And they move on and everybody's okay and go their separate ways. What are they going to do? I keep hearing Cherundolo as like, you know, the assumption, right? Like people are kind of like, it seems like it's going to be him. But who knows? That would be an eyebrow raiser for me, because that's not a team that I think their ambition and what they want to be in 2022 and beyond really lends itself to someone who's never been a head coach of a first team before, you know, and someone who doesn't have a ton of experience on the professional coaching level. So that would be, I would have real questions there. You know, the Osorio report is out there. I would expect that they'll talk to a significant number of international candidates, and probably already have spoken to a significant number of international candidates from South and maybe Central America. So I don't know. I don't think this one is quite as straightforward as it seems. I'm very curious to see if they go domestic or international. I think if it's domestic, it'll probably be Cherundolo. And if it's international, I think it'll be anybody's ball game, really. But I think that's a big question that Thornton's going to have to handle, because I think for this roster, international makes sense in a lot of ways. And for what they've shown to be and what they seem to want to be in terms of their players and their profiles of those players, international makes a lot of sense. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
We didn't mention, I think this is more for Houston than LAFC, but have you heard Hugo Perez's name at all?
I have not, but I'll start asking around about it.
Whoa.
It's a good shout, David.
Extra time.
We are just influencing coverage at The Athletic right now. That's why I pay for a subscription, Sam.
So that you make sure they do the work we give them?
Exactly. You know what? I see everybody getting those nice new subscriber deals, but I pay my $8 a month or whatever so that I can tell Sam, go check out Hugo Perez. What do you think, Charlie? What should LAFC do in your mind?
I think they need to go in a different direction. If you're talking about the style of play that they have, even though they're looking at selling players, whether it's this window or in the next window, if you're really serious about Carlos Vela, and I know he hasn't been healthy, but if that's kind of the player that you think you can get another 3-4 years out of, then you have to go get a coach that's going to be able to motivate him and have a good relationship with Carlos Vela. So I'm curious to know. I'm sure Thornton had a conversation with him, but something that would be appealing for players of his stature, of his style, I think would go a long way with LAFC.
So Vela had his option triggered, and I believe, and anybody here who knows better, correct me, that it's only through the summer that option would run. Is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do we think here? What is this Carlos Vela's future sealed? Is this just a temporary thing?
I will throw out there that Juan Carlos Osorio is the only Mexico national team coach that had Vela in the team over the last, 8 years? So there is a relationship there that has been successful where others have failed.
That's a good point. I don't think the story is written on Vela in LAFC in this offseason yet. I don't think it's completed. It'd be weird if they brought him back just on a short-term deal like that.
You either need to get him locked in for a longer period or he moves.
Yeah, so he would. Yep. I believe he would have been an MLS free agent had they not picked up his option, which would have been interesting. So it would have been an easy way for him to walk. So maybe that's why they wanted to kind of protect
Carlos Vela to Miami.
There you go. Breaking news: Charlie Davies.
Let's just you know what? We'll just start throwing it out there. We traffic in rumors. We could do this, right?
Why Miami when he could go to Cincinnati instead?
Ooh, I have heard he wants to play for Jim. Sorry, just kidding. That was our absolute radio silence from the entirety of this panel. Sam, before we let you go and get back to real work, anything else on your mind, man? Anything you want to toss out there? Anything you're thinking about?
Lots of things I'm thinking about. One thing I'm thinking about in particular that I'm going to be writing about here over the next 4 or 5 days is just kind of where MLS is headed. We're kind of season 2 of the pandemic, and it's been bizarre and it's been weird, and hopefully 2022 will be more of a return to normalcy for the league and for all of us around the world. But I'm just kind of curious from a roster perspective, from a schedule perspective, from a playoff format perspective, if this current setup is working the way the league wants it to, and if they think they can be more efficient maybe in how their roster rules work and in getting a bigger ROI on the money that is already spent by teams on players. And then if they would consider maybe changing the postseason format to make the regular season matter a little bit more. Because I think that's an issue for this league to tackle when 14 teams make it, when 7 from each conference make it, and you really only got to turn it on for 10 games to do so. Maybe a player or a team takes 1%. A little less effort, right? Or that extra 1% is missing. And that can make a big difference in terms of the product on the field and making it really entertaining for all of us to watch and enjoy and consume.
All right. Speaking of enjoying consumption, there are 2 podcasts I listen to. One is a golf podcast. The other one is allocation disorder.
You do not.
Yeah.
You listen to a golf podcast?
Yeah, I've outed myself.
My God.
No, it's
I never should have said
extremely,
that.
No, I'm sure it's extremely riveting.
Wow.
I'm absolutely locked in on it.
We all got to
but-
take naps, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I need sleep. If you hadn't heard, I have 2 children. Charlie, we share in this, right? Like, you know about this. Nah, I'm just kidding. Allocation Disorder, go check it out on the Total Soccer Show Network. And, of course, follow Sam and Paul Tenorio, who's part of Allocation Disorder, and many other wonderful writers at The Athletic. I'm a happy subscriber. Sam, thanks for joining us, man. Always appreciate you.
Thanks, Weebs. Thanks, guys.
All right, big thanks to Sam. A lot of news to sort through right there. Big news for a lot of clubs around MLS with a lot of dominoes, depending on those decisions by club. Before we get out of here, some news here. End of year roster decisions are going down. Tom Bogert is the guy to go check out on those. He is analyzing all of them at MLSsoccer.com and on Twitter. Some of the biggest news, I mean, Ayo Akinola is out of contract. Apparently, Raul Ruiz-Diaz, who had his option picked up, wants a new contract. Obviously, he is through the Peruvian-American media. Let's say Nick Negrini of Sports Pulso is saying there's more than one club that would want Ruiz-Diaz. No surprise there. And he wants to go after not feeling valued after his contract option was exercised. This feels like a classic case of give me a new contract with more money and additional years. So we'll see how that one plays out. What's the name on the roster decisions that stand out to you guys? I mean, I'm going to start. Alexander Pato, baby. Bonafide offer. Comeback player of the year. I'm calling it. 2022. Bet on this. Nah, I'm just kidding. But, Ayo is an interesting one. That he's out of contract is fascinating with Bob getting there and having control. I would assume they're going to try to keep him because it looks like Josie's out. But TBD on that one. What do you guys think? What's got your eye?
2 of the ones that stand out to me are goalkeepers, and Stefan Cleveland and Alec Khan. I think we've had this conversation a lot over the last year or two, but if you can get solid performance from a domestic goalkeeper, it really opens up your roster for a lot of people. And I think Cleveland proved this year that he could be a starter in this league. And Alec Khan's been an above average replacement when Guzan's been out. So whether it's, if Bobby Shuttleworth isn't coming back, whether it's a backup to Solina just as an insurance policy, is it the Revs who maybe you don't know if Turner's coming back? Do you go and get one of those guys? Or is it a team that's looking for a starter like a Houston, maybe like a Montreal or a Charlotte that can get one of those guys? So I think those would be 2 that I'd key in on, especially with the success of Stuver, Joe Willis, Tyler Miller over the last few years.
Yeah, good call. Charlie.
Interesting.
Forgot how to operate the mute button.
Is mute your number 1 free agent?
Yeah, it was. I'm going to go with Aloy Room and Kellen Rowe. I thought those 2 players, it's surprised me that they are not locked up. I thought Kellen performed really well this year and was placed in a variety of different places, so I thought that's a no-brainer. Clearly I was wrong, and Aloy Room is one of the better goalkeepers in CONCACAF, So
one thing to point out, and we don't know how this is going to be unique. We've never seen free agency like this with this many players, this many options. So we don't know, I don't think, exactly how it's going to play out across the league. But with an expansion draft, if that player became a free agent or you didn't pick up their contract, you can potentially bring that player back, but you don't have to protect them in the expansion draft. And that's part of, I think, the calculus for some of these teams is, while we want this person, let's say like a Kellen Rowe, we'll take the risk of trying to get him back in free agency versus keeping him on our roster, having to protect him and not being able to protect someone that we want to on the rest of their team.
December 14th, expansion draft for Charlotte. Season rolls on, even though we're in the conference finals. Again, Saturday. Go check it out. Make sure you watch in Portland. Timbers, Real Salt Lake, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, FS1. Fox Deportes pregame on Twitter Spaces, postgame on MLS channels. Same thing, Philly and New York City, 3 p.m. Eastern Sunday, ABC, ESPN Deportes, and then we will know. Maybe even on Saturday, where MLS Cup will be, and December 11th will be the icing on the cake, folks. All right, that's it for us. If you want to say something, do it. 401-2060-MLS, extra time at MLSsoccer.com. We will see you on Monday to wrap it all up and look ahead to MLS Cup. Have a great weekend, everybody. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with Extra Time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more Extra Time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.